Last year, my clients generated over $1.8 million from short-form content. And all of this came from organic content alone, without a single dollar spent on ads. One of them had less than 130 followers when we started working together. We made 9 reels, and those 9 videos alone generated almost 1,600 leads. Another one went from 0 social presence to 69,000 followers in just 4 months. And in this video, I'm going to break down the exact system behind all of it, step by step, so you can take this framework and start turning your content into a machine that actually brings leads and revenue to you every single day. So let's get into it. Now, this system didn't come from some sort of course or textbook. It came from 6 years of doing marketing for every type of business you can think of, and failing at the most of it before anything started to click. I started when I was 16. My dad had his own business, so I grew up around it and had that kind of itch to build something for myself. The first really big thing I got into was crypto. This was around 2021 when everything was going crazy. Bitcoin was going crazy, the whole space was blowing up, and I was right in the middle of it. I grew a pretty solid following on Twitter at the time, which got me in contact with founders and projects that were actually raising real money. And because I knew how to grow my own account, they started asking me if I could help them grow theirs. So for a while, things were actually moving, but then the market crashed, and suddenly I had a skill, but nowhere to put it. I lost $30,000 on a single project. Pixelmon. I minted 3 NFTs at 3 Ethereum each, and at the time those 3 Ethereums were worth 10k for each NFT. But I watched it all disappear, and when everything crashed, everyone just went their own way. So I started working with local businesses. Anything that needed help in marketing. And I was getting the results, and the content was working. For a local business to even cover my fee, they have to sell so much of their own product to even break even on me. And the margins are so thin that the math barely works out. And then I found the info space. Course sellers, coaches, people selling high ticket offers. These people were making serious money, and almost all of them had the same problem. Their content was either random lifestyle posts that looked cool but brought in 0 leads, or it was talking head value content with no structure, no hook, and no CTA. If I could build a system that turns short form content into actual leads and revenue for these people, I'd be solving a real problem for businesses that can actually afford it. And over the last year alone, that system has generated over 1.8 million in client revenue. Now, the first thing most people do wrong is they skip straight to posting without doing the thing that actually works. And that step is research. Before I create a single piece of content for every client, I go through everything they've already posted. What got views, what didn't, what did they actually bring in engagement, and more importantly, what brought in leads or sales, because the data is already sitting there. Most people just never look at it. Then I look at the competitors. What is working in their space right now, and what kind of hooks are getting traction? What formats and topics are resonating with the audience they're trying to reach? And the thing is, you don't have to reinvent anything. You take what's already working to give it your own voice, your own angle, and you're already ahead of 90% of people who are just winging it every time they're pressing record. I had a client come to me who's been posting for months. They had 130 followers, barely getting 200 views each video. And they had over 80 posts up that absolutely went nowhere. When I looked at her content, the issue was obvious. There was no structure and there was no strategy behind any of it. They were just throwing random videos up whenever they felt like recording or posting something. So when we started working together, we didn't change their brand or the offer. We just changed what they talk about and how they structure it. 9 reels, that is all we needed. And those 9 reels outperformed every single one of their previous posts combined. Now, research only tells you what's been tried before, but it doesn't tell you what to do next. And that's where the second part of the system comes in. And honestly, this is what the most people get wrong. You need to know exactly who you are talking to. And I mean exactly. Most people in the info space make content for everybody. They record a video about some general topic and hope the right person sees it and happens to reach out. That doesn't work, because generic content attracts generic followers, and generic followers don't buy. So what I do is map out the exact person we're trying to reach. And there are 3 things I need to know about them before I write a single word of content. First is their pain point. What is this specific thing keeping them stuck right now? What are they struggling with that they can't seem to solve on their own? Second is their desires. What do they actually want? Maybe it's scaling their business to a certain number, or maybe it's free time, or maybe it's being able to work from anywhere on a laptop, on a beach. And third is their goals. Where are they trying to get to in the next 6 to 12 months? What does their life look like when the problem is actually solved? When you have these 3 things mapped out, everything of content you make speaks directly to one of them. And that is what makes someone stop mid-scroll and thinks this person is describing my life right now. That's exactly why those 9 reels converted the way they did. Every single one was built around a specific pain point, specific desire, or specific goal that we already knew the audience had. And when you do that, you stop chasing views and start attracting leads, because the right people find your content and come to you. Now, once you know who you're talking to, the question is, how do you actually build the content itself? Because even if you understand your audience perfectly, if the content isn't structured the right way, your audience is still not going to convert. Every single piece of content I make follows the same 4-part structure. First is the hook. These are the first 2 to 3 seconds of a video where someone decides if they keep watching or keep scrolling. So the hook needs to be clear, specific, and immediately relevant to the person you're targeting. So tell them what the video is about and why it should matter to them. Second is the pain point. Once you get their attention, go straight into the thing they're dealing with. Describe their problem in a way that shows that you understand it better than they do. Because when someone describes your exact situation perfectly, you automatically trust that they have the answer. Third is the solution. And this is where the most people hold back, because they're scared of giving too much away for free. But the more you teach your content, the more people realize that they don't know. And by the way, if you do this, there will be people who get your strategies and apply them by themselves. Those people will always exist. But most people, even if they have all the info in the world, won't apply it for different reasons. So they may as well come to you to help them. And last, number 4 is the call to action. And honestly, this is the most important part, and it gets slept on the hardest. If you're making content right now and you don't have a clear CTA at the end of most of your videos, you're kinda cooked. And even if they love what you're saying, they're not going to go out of their own way to figure out how to buy from you. You have to be the one telling them exactly what to do next. DM me this word, reply the link, follow for more, yada yada. And by the way, I mentioned previously, we only used 2 CTAs in those 9 videos. Just 2. And that was enough to take a client from 130 followers to over 1,000 and almost 1,600 leads. So don't overthink it. Solve one problem per video and give them one clear next step at the end. And one more thing on structure. Script everything out sentence by sentence before you ever hit record. Because when you know exactly what you're going to say when you sit down to film, the content comes out way sharper and the edit is clean because every sentence is its own cut. That prep work is the difference between content that actually converts and content that just fills up a feed. And if you want me to map this out for your brand specifically, send me a DM on IG saying YouTube, and I break down exactly what this would look like for your audience and offer. Now, once everything is scripted, the actual filming is the easiest part of the whole process. And I say that because people overcomplicate production more than anything else. You don't need a studio or expensive gear. A smartphone and a decent mic is generally all you need to get started. And if there's one thing I want you to remember about production, it's this: audio matters more than video quality. If people can't hear you clearly, they're gone. So get yourself a mic before you invest into anything else. We filmed an entire campaign for a client with just a phone and a Rode mic, without fancy studio, lighting, or a whole setup. That campaign sold 620 tickets in just 9 days, which brought in 8,000 euros of revenue. Once it's filmed, post across the platforms that make sense to your audience. For example, IG, TikTok, and YouTube. Sometimes LinkedIn or YouTube Shorts, depending on who you're trying to reach. And keep your branding tight. Use your brand colors. Keep the design clean and consistent, because that builds authority and positioning, whether people constantly know it or not. Now, if you only take one thing from this entire video, make it this next step, because this is the part that turns content from a guessing game into something you can actually predict and repeat. The 5th step is tracking your data. And when I say data, I'm not talking about views, likes, or your follower count. I'm talking about leads, revenue, and actual conversations. Because what happens to most people is they post a video, it gets 10,000 views, and they feel good about it. They post another one, it gets 2,000 views, and they think it flopped. So they try to make more content like the first one. But what if that 2,000 views video generated more leads and revenue than the 10,000 one? That's exactly what happened with one of my clients. We posted a few videos for them. One got 6,600 views. Another one got 2,400 views. If you only look at the view count, you think the 600 was the clear winner. But the 2,400 view actually outperformed it in sales. That's more revenue generated from less than half the views. And we only knew that because we track conversions every single day. We could see exactly which video drove which sales, which CTA was pulling, and what format to double down on. That is the difference between chasing metrics and chasing money. So if you sleep on your data, don't expect to pull in any revenue. Track what actually matters. Views are just a vanity metric. Leads and revenue are paying your bills. And that's what what this entire system is built to do. Every step feeds into the next one, and when they're all running together, this is what it looks like. This is how we turned 9 Reels into almost 1600 leads for clients with only 130 followers. That's how we grew another client from nothing to 69,000 followers in just 4 months. That's how we sold out an entire event in 9 days with organic content alone. And that's how we generated over 1.8 million in client revenue in the last year. Now the thing is, every brand is different. Your audience has different pain points, your offer looks different, and the content that's going to work for trading codes is going to work completely different from someone who's teaching how to dropship. So where you start inside of this entire system depends entirely on what you have and where the gaps are. So if you're in the info space right now and you're making content that is getting some views, but it isn't bringing you in any leads, or you're posting every day without a strategy and you have no idea what's working and what isn't, send me a DM on Instagram in the description below saying YouTube. I'll look at what you're doing right now and give you 3 content ideas specific to your brand and your audience that will actually start driving revenue. DM me and I'll see you there.